Hi, Mike Swenson here with Real Freedom, and today we have a special guest. We have Amanda Churchwell with the Churchwell Group, and she's going to share her story of how she's been able to build a large empire of real estate administrative folks that are serving real estate agents all across the country, and also how it's helping her to achieve her personal goals for her and her family, both in time and financially. And so, Amanda, welcome today. And why don't you just give us a little bit of your background before we dig in?
Yeah, thank you. So excited to be here with you. So I have been in the real estate industry for almost 20 years. Started out as a licensed agent, worked in new home sales and then residential resales. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago now, I started a family and got out of selling real estate to, be home with my first daughter. And it was a year and a half later when my former team, I was on a real estate team when I went out, so to speak, and they came to me with the idea of me helping them while I'm home. So they needed some admin help, some contract to close help, and which I had not officially done as other than my own transactions. But I used to help with the brokerage contract review, teaching new agent classes, onboarding new agents, things like that. I loved being involved in the brokerage. And so with that background, they came to me and, wanted me to help them. So little did I know this was a thing out there in the world. And so as soon as I started working with my former team, word got around the office, and this was at the time about 300 agents in that office, and it really just snowballed. And then other offices nearby got wind of what I was doing, just again, having been in the industry and sort of known around the local area. And it really, within the first year, became evident that I had a real opportunity on my hands. And so I just looked at it and said, do I say no because I'm full, can't take on any more clients myself, or do I start to leverage and hire people and actually build a business? And it was not long after that decision to actually build a business, I had my second baby. And then 4 years ago, I had a third. So we're now in year 8 of my business. And, 3 kids later, a couple of moves, and we're rocking and rolling. And so that is how I came to be the Churchwell Group that we know it as we know it today. So.
And just to give people a little bit of perspective then, so over the course of the 8 years, where you're at today, how many states, how many staff do you have, just to help them get a picture of that?
Sure. And so we grew very organically, I will say that. We have not done any outward reach other than to contact the rosters of the offices we have a preferred relationship with, but it's been by referral. And it's just been that organic growth. And so Georgia is where we are. We started in Atlanta, Georgia. And now we are currently serving in about 10 states. We have the opportunity or the experience in 12 states. And we're looking to add 2 more states by the end of this year, again, based on the need and multiple referrals coming from those areas. My team right now, we are 28 of us, including myself. On my leadership team, we have my director of operations, we have my director of talent and training, and then we have our client relationship specialist who, takes care of all the incoming leads. And then once an agent becomes a client, she takes care of loving on them. And then we have our coordinators. So we have transaction coordinators and listing and marketing coordinators on our team. So we are very highly specialized in each of the areas that we operate. And so we feel like that really gives the highest level of service to our client to sort of separate that out versus, one person trying to do all the services.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. And we'll dig in a little bit more on that a little bit later. So talk to me then, when you think about your future, so as we think about financial independence or, retirement or, hitting whatever that number looks like. What do you and your family have in mind when you think about your financial future?
Oh, yeah. So one of the things that I love about what this business has shown me, or what this journey, I should say, has shown me, is that, I'm going to answer the question about what I want for my life. But before I do, something that was just, it was like a light bulb moment that happened in about year 2 or 3 of my business when I was hiring people and learning to hire people and learning to lead, was actually the opportunity I could give to others, through this company. So the people who work here, I'm not just concerned about what my future looks like, but also what their future looks like. And then by extension, what our services do for our clients' life, right? Can they take a vacation and not worry about their business while they're gone? Can they actually enjoy their work now because they're not, mired down in the minutia of everything. And so for me, though, to circle back to your question, my number is really big, but it's also really arbitrary, because at the end of the day, I don't think I could ever determine how big this could grow, right? I think that I would probably put limits on it if I tried to define that. Now, we have a number. Do you want to hear the number?
You can if you want to share it.
So I want my company to be a $10 million revenue company.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal right now is to be netting between 20 and 30% profit. So you can do the math on that.
Mm-hmm.
And more so, though, is the amount of people it will take to get there. That's around 100 people to be able to get there. We're at 28 now. That's sort of what I've written on paper. Will it all shake out that way? We don't know. But essentially, for my family, it's about choices. And one of the things that this company has allowed me to do this year is to achieve a dream I've had since year 1. And that is to retire my husband from his traditional job, bring him home, and let him help take care of the family in our home and support this business that we have. And we were able to do that this year, which is just, huge.
That's freedom, right? When we're talking about freedom, to have him free to do what he wants to do and what you need him to do is
freedom.
A big step. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is just, and my kids are still little. So I started having, children a little later in life. So I've got a 3-year-old, a 5-year-old, and my oldest, she just turned 10 yesterday. And so it's super important for us that we are both here. And we both get to be involved, in that life. And plus, I actually like him, so I like to have him around. And so that's been a big future goal of ours, that you wake up and it's all of a sudden, and it's not all of a sudden, right? It's been 8 years in the making, but you're like, oh my gosh, it's here. And so, the next steps is just to continue to grow the organization so that the opportunity is big for everyone, including myself and including my family. And part of that will be other businesses within, the umbrella of the Churchwell Group as well. Real estate investing is something that I'm very much interested in, having passive income in that regard. And then one day my business will be passive income, right? Because we'll develop someone and raise someone up to take over, that business day to day.
Yeah. And I like what you are focusing on. You're focusing on the right things, because it's at the beginning, just how do I give great service to clients? And then for here, it's how do you give great opportunities to staff? And as we both know, in the admin industry, there tends to be a lot of turnover. There tends to be a lot of burnout. And when you and I first had a conversation, probably almost a year ago now, you said, something that you pride yourself on is that you are providing your staff a career where they can stay in it and they stay with you long term. And so we know life happens, we know things come up, and we know people move on from jobs. And so that's naturally going to happen. And yet for you, the people that you have in your organization have stuck around because they want to be a part of it. They like being a part of it, and you're providing that environment for them. And so, things that tend to wear admin staff out nights and weekends and on call and not having things well planned out and you're just throwing stuff on their plate. Like, you're very intentional about removing a lot of those barriers so people like what they do and they want to do it long term. And then from that, you're going to have people that are in mastery, and in mastery for longer. It's great to get to mastery, but if you get there and you're burnt out, then you're not going to stay there very long. And so you've had some people on your team that have been there consistently a long time, and they love what they do and they love being a part of your organization.
Yeah, it's, that's something that is an ongoing quest, to not only manage and monitor, but to continue to achieve that. And it's not like we haven't had turnover, but I like how Dave Ramsey says it, where the people that leave it's your fault they left. So he was talking about when people exit, how to treat people and treat them just as good on the way out as you did when you brought them in, because it's really your fault that they left. Right. And so whether it doesn't matter if they were incompetent or if whatever the reason was, you hired them, you made that choice. So it's ultimately your fault. It's an oversimplification of that concept. But I'm very proud that I've had people here for years. Some of my first hires are, still here. And that was, like I said, year 2. It was, year 1 was me. Year 2, we started hiring. So got people here over 6 years, which is awesome. And so, when you talk about people, it's my responsibility to continue to level up when it comes to recruiting ability, hiring ability, training ability, and ongoing care of your team. And sometimes we do a really good job of that. And other times, we make mistakes with that. And the key, I think, is to learn from that, so that you can just continue to get better, because it takes a lot of time to recruit, hire, and train people, but then you also don't want to waste their time either. You want it to be the right fit. But yes, creating opportunity is literally what gets me out of bed every day. I was listening to a podcast this morning. They were like, in order to coach your team, you need to figure out what gets them out of bed every day. And it's very clear to me, like, if I didn't have these people depending on me, I may not still be doing this, as hard as it is to grow a business like this. But it's also fun. So I can't say whether I wouldn't if it was just me, but having everyone else here is truly what gets me going. It gives me, purpose, in the sense of being able to create opportunity. I'm employing people. How cool is that? So yeah.
Now, you had mentioned Dave Ramsey, and I know that you're plugged in with some of Dave's stuff. Can you talk a little bit about that? Where you're at, and I know you've attended some of his conferences and things like that. I'd like to hear how some of his philosophies, both just personally but also in business, have kind of rubbed off on you and how you operate.
Absolutely. So he has a division called EntreLeadership, and it is small business coaching. I could not recommend it more. If you are just starting out, or maybe you're not just starting, but if you are hiring people, just starting to hire people, or maybe you've got a few people on your team and you're struggling and you're really having difficulty leading, that's the sweet spot of where EntreLeadership will truly help you in your business. And so I really attribute Master Series, which is the week-long course I went to, and it is intense, and it's I've been twice now, and actually last year was my second time going, and they awarded me the Momentum Award for that year. And it was because from the year before, where I went, to the second year I went, I had increased the profit in my business by 250%. 250% in 1 year. It was amazing. And so, they asked a lot of questions, what attributed to that. And truly, I spent a lot of time, on hiring and the leadership aspect. They go over financials and, operations and things like that. And I felt I had a pretty good handle, but when it came to actually, diving into the leadership portion and how to really succeed through others, we hear about that a lot. And you're not using others, it's succeeding through others. So again, our heart of this organization is, as we grow and as we achieve, everyone gets to grow and everyone gets to achieve right along with us. And so it is fantastic. The heart of the people at EntreLeadership is just so deep, so warm. And they really do care about the success of your business. And it was extremely instrumental. You can get a coach if you're a part of All Access. And I'm a firm believer in coaching. I have multiple coaches and for different things, of course. Mm-hmm. And they've been amazing to me. And they're also just good, fun people too. So I enjoy being around those type of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And talking about success through others, one of the things that, like you talked about, it's not like you're using your employees for your gain. It's in a lot of ways, you're believing in them more than they probably believe in themselves. And you're taking a stand for their greatness more than they might be taking a stand for themselves. And so that's just, coaching 101, right? Like if I was, thinking back to my days in high school sports, I wasn't a great athlete by any means, but my favorite coach was the coach that was the hardest on me, but it was also the coach that encouraged me the most. And it was that balance that really got the best out of me. And not that you're, harping on your employees, but you're believing in them and you're believing in their future, and their future happens to be in your company, and yet they really love it. Right. And so it's not like it's something they don't want to do. They really see their best vehicle for success in life is through the Churchwell Group and through the opportunity that you're providing. And that's really opening up a different world for them. And that's how you see your business growing more quickly than maybe you had ideally thought.
Yeah. And somewhere in our culture, some time back, it seemed to be sort of taboo to talk about succeeding at a high level. And, people were made to feel either greedy or guilty because they really wanted to go after this. At least that's sort of what I've experienced. And it really took, honestly, EntreLeadership showing me, not to continue to promote them, but they're fantastic. But it really took them showing me that it's actually selfish to just keep it all to yourself. So like in year one, had I just said, you know what, I'm going to stop and I'm just going to do what I can do and that's it. It's not right or wrong. It's just the selfish thinking. Like you have this opportunity that you can provide. And if you want to make an impact on the world, then, you take the opportunity that you have and you share it with others. And so, one of the things that I remind myself, and we've all heard it, right? Help enough people get what they want and you'll always have what you want. And the way that works, though, is if you actually have a genuine care and a genuine desire for the people to get what they want, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have those conversations often, on a monthly basis. What do you want? What's your goal? How can I support you? What's not working well? What is working well? Those kinds of things. And so, and you can go farther, faster with more people. So it just, again, I keep talking about opening up that world and that opportunity, and it's nowhere near as big as I want it to be. So I'm excited to see where we go, and just making sure that you're keeping your heart and your priorities, in the right place as you grow and succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and talk about that journey. For a lot of people, let's just say kind of the sales industry, we talk about how the way that they can get leverage in their business is through leverage, right? Through admin staff. And for you, like you said, you could have just been one person, but you would have had clients that you'd have to turn away, clients that really need good service, right? Yeah. And so in some ways, you have to allow yourself to grow to be able to support the needs of the people that want to be a part of your organization. And then at the same time, you also can't do it all. So like you mentioned, all the staff that you had early on, you were all those staff, right? And so you had to do the recruiting and the hiring and figure out the operations and do the listings and do the transactions and all that stuff. And so it's just naturally you figuring out where's your niche, how can you best serve the company? And then you're hiring other people to support you. Can you talk a little bit about that journey, about not only is the listings and transaction staff growing, but thinking about kind of the leadership
Yeah,
piece, the other opportunities. How has that developed for people over time?
for sure. So it's actually really simple. It was about pain. Where was I experiencing the most pain? What did I hate to do?
Hmm.
That was not my strong suit, because quite frankly, whatever that is, it's not because those tasks are beneath me. They're some of the most important pieces of our organization today, and I should be nowhere near them, right?
Hmm.
Because there are other people who are way more qualified to manage the finances, to manage the bookkeeping, to really manage our clients. Because a lot of times we as entrepreneurs, we don't really stop to think like, okay, well, what does that really mean? What is an entrepreneur? It's a visionary, right? It's someone who has, 100 ideas a day. Like, oh, what about this? What about that? What about this? And so the implementation portion usually suffers when you have a solo entrepreneur, right? Not always, but in my experience, when you try to do so many things, you have to have help, because what's going to happen is you're going to either start making mistakes, or maybe the service level is going to go down. And so you really need people to help. And so for me, I tried to look outward and go, okay, what am I supposed to do? Right? What is my next hire supposed to be? And I settled on an assistant. And, I hired an assistant. It didn't work so well. I had taken 0 classes at that time on how to hire.
Hmm.
And so I found out really quickly I needed to take a class on how to hire. And, I've taken it 3 times, and I'm going to take it again next month, October.
Hmm.
So I think I remember exactly what your question is. But, when you look at that leverage piece, it was, what is most painful to me, and what is not my strong suit. And so I needed, and I did have admin help. So the first assistant didn't work out. We did a hybrid where it was actually my mom. She was an MCA for Market Center Administrator for Keller Williams
Hmm.
office. And she was sort of working with me behind the scenes on some things. And then she came fully into the organization. So we did, a little bit of piecemeal there. But you start with, your pain point. Now, I will say, do not hire out of pain.
Hmm.
If you can get to 70% capacity and then say, okay, before I get to 100%, let's hire that next leverage piece. And you look and say, okay, is it a system that I'm missing? Is it a tool, or is it a person? And that's really how we approach every single pain point that we have, or pain points that I know are coming. I know what it's like to be at capacity and things are dropping around you because everybody's so slammed, and I hate being in that position. So I
Hmm.
really try to protect that capacity level, meaning, our ability to take on new business. And I try to always be ahead of that when it comes to leveraging and hiring more people. But in the beginning, it was, what do I hate doing? And we're going to pass that off.
Yeah, and I like how, that's something as we think about real estate business. So for you, you're responding to all the clients that you have when they take listings or when they have purchase agreements that come in. And so you're kind of half a step removed from knowing what the volume's truly going to be. And
Yes.
so you have to get out ahead of that curve, because when it gets to be busy season, that's not the right time to hire somebody, because you need to have taken time to search for somebody, decided who's the best person, hire them, get them trained and up and running for when the busy season hits. And so you always have to be forward looking. So how have you developed that over time to really know when's the right time to make those hires, so that your staff continue to love working for you and continue to
Yes.
want to be around, versus saying, forget this, I'm overwhelmed right now, I'm quitting and I'm figuring something else out. So that's really your responsibility to look ahead and pave that road before the cars get to it.
It truly is. And it is an interesting dance, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a lot of data, a lot of insights into your business. So
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, and then you can see the trends year over year. Now, 2020 goes in the record books, a year of its own, right? But
Mm-hmm.
let's take 2020. I made the mistake of stopping our recruiting during the pandemic. When it first started, it was in April. So we started shutting down in March. And so then April, I was like, okay, we've got to stop. Because we had 3 new coordinators that were sitting there with nothing all of a sudden, because they just came out of training. We were getting ready to load them up, and then phew. But literally within a month, I mean, it just boomeranged, came back, and we had more business than we've ever had. This is our most profitable year ever. And so we had to scramble, and we were 2 months behind, and we had clients on a waiting list. And I hate that. It sounds all great. Oh my God, you had a waiting list, but it's a good problem to have. And also one that I don't like. I don't like not being able to serve the clients. And so,
because those agents they're up a creek right now because they know they want to use you, and you're saying not yet. Well, then what are they going to do in the meantime? They're not going to find a full-time employee that they're going to say, well, actually in 2 months we're going to go with the Churchwell Group. So that puts them in a tough spot. So you're bearing that responsibility and kind of the weight of that decision, and just waiting for them to be ready for you. So yeah, that's a tough spot.
And so I will tell you that traditionally, again, we do use that 70% capacity mark. We know what our coordinators can manage, and not every coordinator is created equal. Some of that is due to the coordinator, and some of that is due to the client makeup that each coordinator has, right? So it's not like, okay, every coordinator has the exact same client count with the same contract count. You could have one coordinator with 17 clients, and you could have one coordinator, with 10, or, what have you, the makeup, because it could be teams, it could be high volume agents. And so we base it on contract volume, not the number of agents that a coordinator has. And so we just watch it. So we know our numbers every week. We know how many contracts we have active with each coordinator, how many listings each listing coordinator is doing, and we're just watching it. Now, I will tell you, at the level that we are now, we are always recruiting, save the, April, where I made the wrong call. Who would have known? But I can accept responsibility for that. Other than that, like, we will never not be recruiting and building out our bench. And sometimes that looks like just having conversations with people, letting them know about the opportunity. Maybe we don't have a place for them right now. And then sometimes it's go ahead and hiring, because, our lag time from hire to being active is, weeks long. And so by the time we get them into production, so to speak, then we've got the clients for them. So it's just a balancing act that is, you're just doing the best that you can with the real data, though. It's not necessarily guessing. It's an educated guess, if you will, but you're looking at all the data in your company, the actives, the terminations. Did you lose any clients? Why? Do we have a ton of referrals coming in? Why? Was there just some big class that happens, right? Or you've got a particular coach, that refers you. So that's just how we do it. It's not complicated, but you must vote. It's our top priority. I mean, hiring and keeping our company available and lower than max capacity is one of the most important things that we do. So we spend a lot of time on that.
Yep, sure. Okay, so then thinking about now into the future, so you're at 28 staff, you want to get to 100, you want to get to that $10 million mark. What do you see between now and then as being some of your top priorities, or some of the things you're going to focus on to get that ultimate financial independence?
Yeah, I'm so excited about that. So we mapped it out for a goal of 2024 to be there. So it's, pretty aggressive, but it means bringing in, between 15 and 16 people a year, because we already have the 28. But what we're focused on is moving people around. So one of my mentors and coaches, Adam Hergenrother, he and Hallie, his chief of staff, call it just reorganizing, right? You're just reorganizing people. And so what we're doing literally right now is we look at who we have and who in the organization wants leadership opportunity. And then we start to interview them for that. I also give them on the job training, if you will. So someone that we have in mind for a leadership role, they're being copied on internal communication from me so that they can see what would Amanda do in this role. And then they're also, asked to do certain things. So develop certain aspects of the role and send it to me, whether that's something on an outline or some sort of checklist or some sort of system. So we're sort of testing them out in those roles. So I think if you want to grow wherever that is, if you're looking out, then you have to do that org chart where you say, okay, well, who will I need? If we're a $10 million, organization, that's 18,000, contracts a year, not including, the listings. And how many people will it take to do that? Okay, then how many people is it going to take to manage 78 TCs and 18 listings? You know what I mean? So you just start to build that out and back into it. And then you start developing the roles. Like it really is, a lot of times we, as again, entrepreneurs or business owners, we say, well, I don't have time. I just don't have time to do that because I'm still doing this. Well, you're never going to get out of this unless you actually schedule time in your calendar to work on. And people talk about on the business, in the business. I don't want to be a cliche, but you need to be very literal about that. So where are you going? What is it going to take you to get there? And you take one piece at a time and you develop it. Or three pieces at a time, depending on how many staff you have. We're developing 2 different roles right now that are going to be in our top leadership level. So that's really, maybe that sounds super simple, but that's really all it is. It is not complicated. It's just more of what we're already doing.
So when you're planning for the future, what does that time look like for you? Is it, hey guys, I'm taking the afternoon off? Or is it I'm taking 2 days off, or I'm taking a week off to get away? Like, when do you schedule in that time to be able to plan and look ahead for your business? Because you're rattling off numbers. You know what 2024 is going to look like, how many TCs, how many listing managers and all that. So it's not like, 10 million would be a nice number of revenue to have, and we'll probably get there. It's no, here's what 10 million is, and here's all the things that we have to do to get there. So how did you come up with that plan, or kind of when did you find bits and pieces in your schedule, or did you just say, I'm taking a week, and you figured that out?
Yeah, so it actually started with that arbitrary number. A coach asked me a few years ago, what's your number? What do you want? Now, I personally want $10 million in the bank for my personal, and that will come.
Yep.
That's not going to come in 2024 necessarily. I get, look, I don't know. I'm not going to say a whole universe, but no. So there will be a, 20-year plan to build that personally. But in my business, for me to get personally to 10 million, I think my business, or at least, the amount of cash that comes from the business and whatever other business I develop and create, is going to fund investments and real estate investments and things like that. Right. But specifically the business, the coach asked me the number, and I just liked 10 million. It really was arbitrary. So I would encourage everyone not to get necessarily caught up in that. It's just, I needed to pick something to calculate on. And I just really liked that number. I felt it was attainable within a few years' time. And so that's how we did it. And then from there, I just looked at it and said, okay, what is that going to take? And how much do I actually want to keep of that 10 million, right? So when it comes to planning, all of that was done probably over a couple of coaching sessions. I have this legal sheet of paper where I actually hand drew it out. There's like lines and circles of all the people and boxes and all that. Now we have it, on a pretty little org chart digitally, but I planned that out a few years ago. And then got really serious about it, in the last 2 years, to be honest. And so now my director of operations and I, we meet every single day in the morning. It's called a huddle, but it ends up being usually about an hour. And we use some of that time most days of the week to plan our future. So we started off by, she goes first. What questions do you have? What are the immediate needs for today? What can I answer for you today? We get that out of the way. And then it's, all right, here's big picture. Here are the conversations I'm having this week. Here are the opportunities that are coming to us. Here are the roles that we need to fill. And then from there, she takes it and organizes it and disperses, various tasks to where they need to go. Some of those stay on my plate. And she has to really, smack me around a good bit and make sure that I'm staying on my priority there. Mm-hmm. It is we are talking about clearing some time for me to just do, but quite frankly, I personally, the way that I accomplish things is when I have someone and we are bouncing things off of each other and we just check it off right then and there. So that's whether it's Megan, my director of ops, mm-hmm. or whether that's a coach. Mm-hmm. I'm doing things in real time pretty much on a daily basis.
Yeah. And as we say, done is better than perfect. So,
absolutely.
It starts with the $10 million number, then you're sprinkling in some other things. And then worst case scenario, you can always adjust it. You could make it 20 if you want, you could make it 5 if you want, but if you don't have the 10, you don't really know where you're going to go. So you just got to come up with something, adjust it. And obviously the something, you're not just, throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks. You're thinking realistically. And what I like you saying is it was attainable within a few years, because sometimes, we may have this plan for world domination where it's, a bajillion staff and $2 bajillion and $3 bajillion of this. And then all of a sudden it's hard to connect the now to the future. And it just seems so unattainable. Not that you can't get there, but picking something 5 years from now that it's like, okay, I think we can hit that. And if it's a year sooner, it's a year or two later, that's less relevant in the long run, because then you can always make a new goal. When you hit 10 million, you could then look up and say, okay, how do we get to 100 million? Or how do we get to 20 million? But at least you're starting with something and it's helping you to see the future ahead of you versus being completely foggy and not knowing where you want to go.
Yeah, I think so. It's not about limiting it at all. I'm not limited to 10 million. I want to get to 10 million by 2024. Okay. So you need to have some wins. It's the same thing going back to Dave Ramsey when he coaches on personal finance. The reason he tells you don't worry about the interest rates on your debt, just worry about the smallest balance first, because you need a quick win, right? So for me, it was having a director of operations in place that would leverage me. This year, we got our client relationship specialist, AKA salesperson, in place so that I am not the one now taking care of all the sales. And then we, of course, have our trainer and recruiter already in place. And that next level will be another, a coordinator manager, if you will. And then we'll have a director of expansion and growth. And so it is those wins that I can see, okay, when I made those key moves, last year, it put us in place for what we were able to accomplish this year, which is our best year ever. And, you just take something that, in my mind, that you can achieve, but it still scares you and it makes you, really have to work for it. I mean, 10 million, 18,000 contracts a year. I mean, that's, who can fathom that, in one place, but it's scary and exciting all at the same time. And I cannot wait to see, what we're able to do. So,
yeah. Wonderful. So before we close here, how can folks get a hold of you? What's your plug that you want to give to people that might be watching this and looking for that administrative leverage, or people that just resonate with your story and want to create something within real estate that's not in listings and transaction management? How can we get a hold of you and how can we support you?
Yeah, thank you for that. So the Churchwell Group provides leverage to realtors to increase their business. And the way we do that, sort of our core belief around that is taking as much off the agent's plate as we can so that they can continue doing their, revenue producing activities, going on appointments, writing contracts, getting to closing, right? And so we handle transactions, listings, marketing. Our website is thechurchwellgroup.com, thechurchwellgroup.com, and you'll see.
We say the in Minnesota.
The Churchwell Group. And then, if you want to reach us, there's the email address there, info if you want to talk about business and schedule a call with me, Amanda at thechurchwellgroup.com, you can reach out. I do encourage you to use the info email as much as possible in case you don't get me as quickly that way. If you send it to info, my team will pick that up. But certainly would make room, for someone who was looking to grow a business, reach that next level. And if you want our services, just reach out. We would love to help you.
Yeah, and if they're not in a state right now that you currently serve, you're certainly open to the conversation and figuring that out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we have a very detailed process of launching a new state, so don't be put off by that. If and quite frankly, I don't even know if all of the states are listed on our website that we do. But just reach out no matter what state that you're in. And if it's something that's an immediate need and we don't serve, we have a huge network of other transaction coordinators and listing coordinators around the country that we would handpick someone to refer to you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.